Yeah, I will be sitting here. First of all, thank you so much for coming here today. As you see, I'm the only one in this discussion who is a real sitting here. So my position today will be to make voices of our panelists more heard and amplified. So I will start with introducing our panelists. Oksana Dutchak is social anthropologist. She holds her PhD in social science from Kiev Polytech Institute. She is a co-editor of Spilne Commons Journal and currently the responsible research officer within the project researching the transnational organization of senior care, labor and mobility in Central and Eastern Europe. Her research interests include protest, workers' protest, gender inequality, social reproduction, care labor, Marxism, feminism. Oksana is devoted to engaged and public research, which contributes to public discussion and policies, trying to give the voices to workers and other structurally underprivileged groups. So, hello, Oksana.
Good evening.
Yeah. Kseniia Beziyazychna is the head of the NGO Solidarity Collectives, which is a grassroots anti-authoritarian initiative. Their goal is to support left-wing activists who are fighting at the front line and equip soldiers with the most necessary stuff. The collective provides humanitarian aid to the communities affected by the Russian invasion and supports rebuilding processes. Kseniia was born in Kharkiv, took part in numerous horizontal initiatives, has organized free markets and actions against racism and discrimination, and has initiated a feminist video blog. After February 24th, Kseniia has been working as a military coordinator in solidarity collectives, collecting requests from soldiers, organizing fundraising, purchases and delivery of these requests. So, greetings for Kseniia.
Good evening.
And Kateryna Rusetska is co-founder and program creator of the Dnipro Center for Contemporary Culture and NGO Kultura Medialna, experimental music and contemporary art festival construction. She focuses on creating visual and educational programs, community interactions, and projects related to activism. Katya?
Yeah, hi everyone.
And Sashko Protyah is a film director and activist from Mariupol, Ukraine. He is co-founder of Free Filmers, a collective of artists and filmmakers. In his films, Sashko works with the topics of memory, otherness, and alienation. Currently, Sashko is volunteering based in Zaporizhia and volunteers for internationally displaced persons and the Ukrainian army.
Hi, everyone.
So our conversation today is dedicated to nurturing solidarity practices in Ukraine during the Russian imperialist aggression, how they emerged and grew fighting in resistance, helping on the front line, cooperating and caring for each other in the environment. So in the first question from me, I would like to ask to all participants to maybe introduce yourself more, to say something about your current projects, what you do right now. Please describe your work. And maybe we will go with Oksana.
Okay, good evening again. So I'm here representing Commons Spilne. It's a journal of Ukrainian left-wing journal, which was founded in 2009, so quite a while ago. It's a journal which is made by a group of editors who are mostly researchers and activists. And we have all very different interests in our fields. In my case, it was mentioned, it mostly labor and gender, but people have very different interests. That's why we are covering very different topics. So we write about labor, economy, about environment, gender, about culture sometimes, and so on and so forth, about history. So it depends on the materials we are getting and the expertise we have, but we are trying in any case to promote the kind of left-wing progressive vision of different processes in the society and different events and history including. Traditionally, we have been working with texts and until quite some years ago, but now we are also working with different formats, including video, animation, podcasts, graphic stories or comics, and so on. So we are trying also to experiment with different formats, and many of our materials are also available in English, and some are also available in some other languages. It also depends on the initiative from different groups from abroad, for example, from France or from Portugal, and when they are translating materials, we are also always happy to greet this. And of course, like for the past 2 years, we have been writing and producing a lot of materials about the war in Ukraine, about Russian full-scale invasion, from different perspectives, from historical, from analysis of current events. We also produce some reportages and so on. And one more thing which we are engaged since this year is also the special project which is called the Dialogues of the Peripheries, because during the first year of the full-scale invasion, we were very much involved into kind of dialogue with mostly Western leftists, so-called, because we were trying to position the voice of Ukrainian leftists in relation to the general discussion about the events happening in Ukraine. And at some point in the beginning of this year, we found that this discussion is not that relevant for us anymore, because we consider that people have made their opinions mostly, and it's really doesn't make much sense to put a lot of energy trying to convince people more, because, I mean, information is available, expertise is available, voice of Ukrainian leftists is available. So it's like nothing can be changed that much. But we also understood that one of the very outdated tasks, which was partially also our mistake, we didn't pay that much attention to it, is to build the independent dialogue with people and activists, researchers, and so on from other peripheral countries like Ukraine is. So we are now trying to build this independent dialogue without the kind of middle person from West or from global North, whatever you call it. So to build an independent dialogue between Ukrainian activists and activists from other peripheral countries. On the one hand, to build some solidarity and some common understanding of the events happening in our regions, which, now they're speaking about the shift from the unipolar world to a multipolar one. And some people are also saying in a kind of poetic way that this shifts, it leads to the situation when the periphery is burning. And we see it in Ukraine, we see it in Gaza, we see it in Karabakh and many, many other places. So we think it's very important, though a bit outdated again, to talk about these events from our own perspective from the periphery. And that's one of the big part of the things we are doing now, but we are also continuing with all various kind of interventions in different formats in relation to different topics.
Yeah, thank you, Oksana. And maybe with Kseniia, can you introduce?
Yes. Thank you for inviting, first of all. Yeah, my name is Kseniia, and I am, as you say, activist from the group called Solidarity Collectives. It's a group that was organized just a year and a half ago. Then the full-scale invasion in Ukraine started. Our main task was to help people from leftist area like anti-authoritarians, feminist, eco-anarchist, anti-fascist, punk rock skin to punk rock skin fighters who participate in resistance to Russian aggression, who go as volunteers to the front line. Our main task was to support them, to give them all necessary equipment to increase their safeness in a very high danger situations. Also, one of directions of our collective work is humanitarian help to the war-affected areas. We try to put our intention to the territories that are not touched by, let's say, big volunteer organizations or some places that not receive enough help from government and state. Like we try to repair houses, give like the most needed power banks, generators, medical help closest to these regions. And one of other directions that we have, it's like media work. We try to make voices of Ukrainian leftist people who are now participating in such difficult actions on the front line, to make their voices being heard on the West, like in America, in Europe, to explain why, from leftist perspective, these people decided to participate in such actions as resistance to Russian aggression, to make the voices of real individual peoples being heard. Yes, and this group united from different grassroots initiatives, and we tried to organize, let's say, community networking with Ukrainian leftist organizations, progressive organizations, and also do this grassroots networking, horizontal networking with internationally, like with European friends and initiatives. To grow this solidarity and make a difference in this situation. Kind of this.
Thank you. Thank you, Kseniia. And I will go for in the same as I introduce my speakers. So Katya will be next.
Hi, everyone, and thank you to the curators, and thank you for inviting for this event and giving us a chance to talk. I'm here on behalf and representing NGO Kultura Medialna. We have several projects. One of the projects, as Yulia mentioned, it's a festival of experimental music and contemporary art. We also have a lot of projects linked to informal education, working with public spaces. And since 2018, beginning of 2019, we also have a space which we develop, and this is a Dnipro Center for Contemporary Culture, which operates as a culture center since end of 2021. We started in 2014, right after Maidan, and right after the annexation of Crimea. And actually it was our first event, which was also dedicated to fundraising for families of Crimean Tatars who were forced to leave and to leave Crimea. And since then, we organized a lot of charity events, a lot of fundraising events. And as I mentioned before, we now work a lot with Culture Center because we have space. It really needs a lot of effort to maintain it, and but also give us more opportunities to build partnerships to develop some sustainable projects. Since beginning of the full-scale invasion, of course, a lot of things changed. If our team were really focused on international partnerships and bringing and doing a lot of international projects in our culture center, obviously, we changed our focus. We closed our space for 1 month, and in the end of March, we opened the space. In the beginning, not for cultural activities, but for volunteer and humanitarian organization, because our space is kind of huge. For Dnipro, it's around 3,000 square meters. So we basically used what we had, and we provide with the space those who were focusing on evacuating, providing humanitarian aid, and also military aid. So this is what we are working still. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sashko, finally.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Sashko Protyah. I just come from Mariupol, but just now kind of course, like based like in Zaporizhia. I'm a member of Free Filmers, a cooperative of filmmakers and artists originally from Mariupol, but now we are working from different parts of Ukraine and other countries as well. So we started as a collective of filmmakers focusing on decentralization. Like this is like what we were mostly interested in, the region. Filmmakers who were underrepresented in the Ukrainian cultural process. So we were trying to promote Eastern Ukrainian filmmaking and our topics, our methods, our ideas. But then gradually we became more politically oriented with more interest in political issues, social equality, gender equality, ethnic minority issues, other problems as well. Then since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we've basically turned into a humanitarian cooperative, and now most of our work is dedicated to humanitarian activities. Like basically we just continue screening our movies all around the world. There have been many screenings in Germany, for example, and at such solidarity events, at such solidarity screenings, we raise funds for our humanitarian activities that we use for for our like projects and the groups that we mostly work with. Kind of the vulnerable people, vulnerable groups such as Zaporizhia Roma community, people from the rural areas, especially women from the rural areas, from the villages that lived through the Russian occupation. We also work a lot with militaries, paramedics, who are unfortunately in many cases under-equipped and don't have the right medical equipment to provide first aid. These are kind of our main focuses in our work right now. We just still make films and videos, cooperating with other initiatives, like for example with solidarity collectives. But our main focus is still now volunteering and humanitarian activities. So this is like kind of general background of our work as a collective.
Thank you. Thank you for every presentation, let's say. So I just wanted to start actually with a question. Now, so we see here like an interesting element to point out in this discussion and to this panelists. It's like multidisciplinary aspect, like all these solidarity initiatives. Like we see here culture, activism, labor movement, volunteer, anti-authoritarian initiatives. So how all these form the grassroots resistance of Ukraine. And who's first?
I can start, I think, as we are going in this sequence. Well, I think that basically when I'm looking at people who are present here, like with Kateryna, some of our editors visited the event organized by her organization some weeks ago. With Kseniia, for example, we are collecting, we have the English version of our journal printed issue on Russian invasion, and the money we collect from selling this issue goes as donations to solidarity collectives, which Kseniia represent. With Sashko, for example, we had an interview some time ago speaking about his like free filmers experience and activities, so on. So I think in this sense, like it is on the one hand a very good example of cooperation, and many of us has these good examples, but it also sometimes makes me feel a bit sad, because it shows how relatively small the left-wing and progressive community in Ukraine is, because people mostly know each other or know other people who know other people. So it's relatively still a small community. But I think there is also quite a big progress in pushing the boundaries of this community. So in our case, we are trying to basically give a platform where people can speak about their experience, about their activism, about their problems, or the problems which they're interested in, like gender inequality, LGBTIQ rights, or I don't know, like ethnic minority rights, and so on. So we are trying to give a platform where people can represent themselves, and also so the more broader public will learn about them, and in a way to join in different ways. I mean, either like if we are speaking about volunteer organizations, people can devote their time, or they can send donations, or they can go to a film festival, about which we are writing. This last several days in Ukraine, we have a feminist film festival which is called Filma, and we are writing also about it, and so kind of giving more people a chance to learn about it and to see these movies, which are very worth watching, and so on. So we are trying to give people information about cultural events, about protest movement, about different volunteer initiatives, and so on. Like the video project we had this year, it was a video reportage format, quite a short videos, up to 10 minutes, where we were collecting like precisely stories of different left-wing and progressive volunteer initiatives and organizations, and tell about them, and in some cases give people a chance to donate to these initiatives if they needed this. We also, I think what is important, and at least I wanted to believe in this, it's also a chance to give people some inspiration for social struggle. Like recently we published a small documentary about the leader of Ukrainian movement of nurses. So we have this grassroots, self-organized and quite prominent phenomena of movement of nurses and other medical workers, but predominantly nurses who work in healthcare. And we made a movie about this leader of the movement, and our intention was to also to inspire people to struggle for their labor rights, to show that it is possible, that people are doing this, that there are people whom they can rely on, ask their advice, or have the example in front of them. And so it also kind of bring some, at least the idea was to show people that it can work, like the trade union and labor struggle can work. So in this sense, because as I was mentioning, we have different interests, and we are also as activists and researchers, we are embedded in very different networks. Either it's environmental activism or feminist activism or labor activism and so on and so forth. So we are trying to use these connections and in a way to produce materials for which we can publish, but also that people can use us as a platform to represent them from various angles, either their labor movement or cultural initiatives or volunteer organizations and so on. So I think that's the way we are trying to deal with this complexity of grassroots initiatives and organizations we are having in Ukraine recently, and hopefully we'll have them more also, including due to spreading information about these events and groups and people.
Thank you. And okay.
Yeah, I maybe want to add, maybe for auditory who haven't been during the first days of full-scale invasion in Ukraine. It's a bit difficult to explain, but it was very unique period of time when all Ukrainian society, like apolitical, political people, just like from teenagers to elder people, was sharing there was a need to stick together, to support each other. And during this period, in my opinion, it was very big a rising of horizontal initiative, not realizing that like it's political practice, but practice of support, of solidarity was spread through all society. Like people who never have military experience was unity together in communes and try to defend their districts, like with whatever they have, with handmade Molotov cocktails or guns, to like elder ladies who were cooking every day for people to help, like to feed them. And during this, let's say, period, it was very like for leftist initiatives who like have a bit more political vector. It was period then like different affinity groups, small initiatives that were pretending to be independent every time, like not being a part of big organization or party, they unity together in some network, like trade unionists, like eco-anarchists, they unity in one sphere that with cooperation, communication with each other, and of base of this communication, it was very like successful period to organize some project. And like at some moment it becomes solidarity collectives. In military side it was some kind of resistance committee group that tried to connect like progressive left people. And for now, still for me, I still feel in this kind of vibe, for sure, for these years of war and full-scale invasion. People get exhausted and still tired, but the feeling of helping each other, a feeling of try to protect, support, it's still here. And due to this feeling, I guess all we still communicating, helping and trade unionists and some other initiatives on the front, and with communes that suffered from Russian invasion from civilian side, it's still I feel this organizing of some horizontal area of networking in people, in society. Still, it maybe have not very political self-understanding, but as a practice, it's pretty common as happening. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Who wants next?
I mean, like if we continue the same
circle
around. Basically what I can add to Oksana and Kseniia that first thing, it's difficult to find like pure initiatives right now who are just focusing on the cultural activism or labor movement. All of us and other initiatives who are not represented here today and who are working in Ukraine, quite often they combine all mentioned about components. And we are, in our case, it's more about cultural activism and volunteering, of course. And first thing, like I think that we didn't have a choice. We just needed to gather and to support each other. That's first. And second, in our team, we thought about our skills and our experience and what we can do. We are good in organizing events. We are good maybe in promoting some information or in fundraising. And we started, and we still doing this, doing some projects or supporting some other initiatives who maybe doesn't have as big audience or who cannot reach this audience. So we used our skills, our experience, and some basic tools for this. And in general, I think that everything what's happening in Ukraine right now is based on collectivity, obviously, on supporting, but also on constant interaction. Which is obviously exhausting sometimes, but that's but still we're in this, and also it's a fuel for our work. And what else I would want to add that that also what is the main thing I think in this. Partnerships and in support, it's also time. I think you always need to react super fast, super quick. You don't have time to, and that's how most of the partnerships, most of the interactions with other initiatives happens. You have to react quick and support quick.
Thank you, Katya. Sashko?
I guess, if I'm not mistaken, there was mention of interdisciplinarity, of interdisciplinary nature of grassroots movement in Ukraine now. And I would like to come back to this aspect of, grassroots self-organization. I would say that this interdisciplinary approach of most grassroots groups in Ukraine, it just doesn't come from some academic area. It just comes naturally as the only effective approach to the circumstances and to the situation that we have to live through. And so it just kind of comes naturally to be multitasking and multi-focusing all the time. And I will just give a short example of our work. One of our members, Yulia, she's been working on a movie about the Roma community and their problems and that they experience because of the war, because they just had to flee their home in the occupied territories. And while kind of we are making on this movie, we just can't ignore the fact that we just can't just produce some unique footage for the future human rights festivals. We have to help. We have to help this community right now, and this is our task. And it's kind of even more important for us, not just to be filmmakers, but to be sensitive humans who can do something about the situation they live in. because most of these refugees, they just live in squalor. Their kids don't have access to any education, and just like it happens often, their brothers' husbands, they have joined the army, and for women it's very, very difficult to deal with the situation having a lot of kids, because most of the Roma families, they just have many children. So like in this respect, we can see that our task is just like to be like interdisciplinary, like in this like absolutely logical way, just to try to help, to try to work with them, not only as a collective of filmmakers, but also as a collective of volunteers, to care about their children's access to education, to try to help, to try to improve their housing conditions, to help, like sometimes just even to help the Roma women with work opportunities. So like, this is like how it works. And of course, it can be super exhausting for us, but this is just the way how we can be active and proactive at the same time, because like, of course, we can expect the situation to become even worse for many Ukrainians. So like in this case, this is like how it works, I guess, like for many grassroots initiatives or for organizations which just pay attention to social inequality.
Okay, thank you. And well, my next question will be mentioned about also this like transnational support and solidarity, and we all know that like we hear many voices and of the need for this international, this anti-imperialist solidarity, and how do you think how we can develop this structure in Ukraine, like of transnational solidarity?
Yeah. I don't have good answers here, actually. I think I can speak a lot about obstacles to this solidarity, because there are many. First of all, like, we are living in a world where the old system is shaking and maybe falling apart, quite likely. I'm speaking about the US hegemony and the US unipolarity we had for several decades, for more than half a century. So in this situation, when the system is very unstable, there are regional imperial and colonial powers who are trying to increase their influence, to expand their sphere of influence and potentially become one of the poles of this newly emerging multipolarity. This brave new world, how it is called by the Russian socialist movement. So in this shaking system, on the one hand, like, we have this competing imperialist powers who are attacking either directly or indirectly the countries which they consider to be the spheres of influence, and to build anti-imperialist solidarity in such a chaos is quite hard, actually. Theoretically, like, when the system is shaking, it's like the best opportunity also to push it into something more progressive, because it's unstable. But unfortunately, secondly, and maybe also one of the most important thing, is that we are living in the world where there is no successful left-wing projects of a significant scale, like no country which we can consider to be like the etalon or representative of something more progressive, or potential for creating some more progressive structures for this global community we are living in. So in the end, like, left movement in general, it found itself very much separated during the last years, and in the end, it's either being numb or sometimes even hiddenly or openly cheering for one of the potential imperialist power who wants to become the second, or one of the hegemons, or the main hegemon. And these all powers, of course, imperialist, and they are not progressive. So in the end, it's to build solidarity, anti-imperialist solidarity in this situation. It's very challenging. And I think that parliamentary parties and the big movements, I'm speaking about left, of course, they mostly failed in this regard. So they are either, most of them did not consider to support like Ukrainian struggle for self-determination. Sometimes they are also opposing Ukrainian and, for example, Palestinian struggle for self-determination against each other. So all this mess is happening. And so I think the only thing which is working and which has a potential to continue work as a ground for international solidarity against imperialism, against other forms of oppressions, it's so-called minority-to-minority solidarity, the only thing which I see working now. So it's a solidarity between relatively smaller groups of people and activists who share more or less the same perspective and who can talk directly, more or less, or in a kind of mediated way and find the common ground. And that's what I see working for us, for example, for the last 2 years, since the full-scale Russian invasion, and also in other cases. And also often this networks which are emerging, these networks of solidarity which are emerging from such a communication and cooperation, they're often centered around specific people who have kind of many connections and ability to connect people. And that's also what I saw like in several examples and during the past 2 years, which also points to the problem that we are speaking about smaller communities and smaller networks in the end, but it's the only ground where I see some optimism, at least trying to see in the situation, which is otherwise not very optimistic.
Is it, yeah?
Or if it's discussion, I can later.
Yeah, please. You can continue, Kseniia.
Yeah. Well, I just want to add, I could share my experience as a member of the group of Solidarity Collectives. I didn't mention, but during these years, we have been working with a huge summaries for soldiers. It's bigger than 130,000 of euros for all these years. And we never, through process of gaining this money, it's everything donation. And it's every time donation starting from people who send in $1 to some more maybe bigger initiatives and like events like book fairs who could like sell in the merch and help with bigger amount of money. But it's never been like big like leftist parties or leftist big trade unions, and we didn't have like regular support from some big institutions. From this sense, it's every time about very, very wide networking of just simple individuals, like small like affinity groups, initiatives, like who are interested in the problem, who feel empathy to this. And what I see in Europe, it's like really the movement, if we like, let's say abstract movement is separated with people who feel some, let's say, interest and empathy to experience of Ukrainians, like sharing their right to defend themselves, and people who be stuck with some theoretical narratives and, let's say, take some individuality from Ukrainians as society. They split it between Russia and NATO, where losing the sense of like where voices of people is missed. So, in my opinion, what is how solidarity can work and shared. This event today, it's perfect example of how it really works and how the possibility to us to exist and fight and defend is working. It's people speaking with people listening, people feeling some empathy to this or not empathy. There is possibility to discuss. This is how all these years it was working. Not like we come with political statement from party where people say, yeah, okay, we as state vs party support in this. It's like every time on very individualistic level, and it's interesting that everyone could actually be a part of this network. Kind of this.
And maybe anyone wants to add something?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
I can add to Ksenia's and Oksana words that I'm totally agree with everything they said, and I think it's also really long-term process of dialogue and process of learning, but also the events like this, some educational events, some maybe some networking and some discussion events also could be helpful. But in general, it's a long-term process.
Yeah, I would add briefly that living in the country which just has to defend itself from the aggressor, like basically living during the war, makes you somewhat selfish. It just means that you know a lot about your own problems, about your own challenges, and unfortunately you just lose sight of what's happening in other countries. And this is like kind of a problem. Like that's why you are just kind of losing potential points of connection, potential points of building some common agenda. Like not only because like for now it's very important for Ukraine to start talking not only about Ukraine, but about Ukraine as part of the periphery, as part of the other countries that are experiencing maybe the same problems, the aggression of imperialist powers. Like this is like part of the very, very impressive work that Spilna is doing now, like talking about such peripheries. Yes, and I would say like in this respect, we can learn a bit more about other countries via, for example, our partners via our networks of solidarity in Europe. Like, for example, our partners WET from Rotterdam, who have been helping us to organize solidarity screenings for months. And now they've already organized the same format, the same solidarity events to support the Palestinian community. And so like this is like how, such kind of smaller networks of solidarity just can lead to kind of bigger networks, like more effective networking and understanding the global agenda. Like in this respect, I would like Ukraine not to become a part of some group of like, let's say, superpowers. I wouldn't like Ukraine to become part of this global north. Yes, like in this respect, I would prefer us to work alongside similar progressive movements in Latin American countries, African countries, Asian countries. Like this is like where I would agree with Oksana. I would like to be optimistic, and this is like where I believe. Like we can see like some like right way to develop, right way kind of to rebuild the world policy. But I'm just for now I'm just still not sure if it's possible or not.
Yeah, thank you. And probably this will be my last question before we open the mic for the questions. So you can just think if you have some. So the question is, what has changed during 20 months? Like, is there any changes in your activities?
I think it's easier to answer what hasn't changed in a way. Yeah, in our case, of course, there were huge change in activity, in situations of different editors, of people whom we we are working with. Like some went to armies, some became refugees abroad or displaced inside the country. I myself was a refugee in Germany for quite a while with kids, but now I'm back to Ukraine. Others, on the other hand, cannot cross the border because they are male. Some of our authors died as soldiers in Eastern Ukraine. Our responsible editors, we don't have like chief editors, but our responsible editor, he died this summer because his heart stopped basically working. So, I mean, it's a lot of things has changed. On the other hand, we also, like, not to make it too sad, to negative story, to sad story, though it is, because it's a story about war happening in the country. But we also felt a lot of support. And it's true. I mean, especially during the first year, sometimes like we were proposed so many things to, like so many opportunities to continue our work, to develop and expand it, that we had to reject basically some of them because we understood that we are lacking human resources just to deal with all the projects which people wanted us to contribute to. So in the end, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of support also in terms of resources, in terms of human resources. So many people proposed like to translate, to proofread English and so on and so forth. Some did volunteer translation into various languages and so on. And also support in terms of political support, so providing some platforms for us to speak and to address the problems and present our vision. So it's also partially a kind of inspiring story, probably, which is part of a sad story that many people discovered Ukraine on the map at some point. But I mean, I'm also not saying that I'm not making it against people, because I know that I also don't know that much about many other countries. And that's one of the things which Sashko was talking also about. We are like jumping in now, like in this kind of tunnel vision because of the events happening in Ukraine. But otherwise, I mean, I also understand that for myself, not for all the editors, many parts of the world, they are kind of, I don't know that much about that. And one of the ideas of the dialogue of the peripheries is also to educate ourselves and people in Ukraine about perspectives and events in other countries. So I think these were the main structural things, but also the topic which we came to, the dialogue of peripheries. And I think it's the topic with which we will continue to work for quite a while. So we suddenly also discovered a topic which was not there. So we kind of thought that we were covering most of the possible topics which may be interesting to us and to people in Ukraine, but we discovered this topic which was quite new and with which we, I think, will continue to work for still years, because it's a huge, it's a huge topic, and you can approach it from so many sides, and and it's also important for us.
I maybe will add. I don't think that we should be like making a picture a bit more lighter. What's happening in Ukraine now, we could say it's a time of heroes. After the war, it will be time of builders. But time of heroes means that all society live in condition knowing that a lot of like friends, relatives, designers, activists, feminists, like people from social sphere come to the front line, passing through these years through very difficult experience, very self-destructing experience of war. people get tiring. You like civilians live with like every time need to support, to help, but also with feeling that you live in some kind of lottery when some of your friends or some people you know from work, like it's pretty possible that there will be a thing that he will not return. You will have a news that this person not return from the military mission, like your comrade will not return or someone else, and you should pass into this experience. It's pretty like how regularity of this experience, like once per 2-3 months, you have a news of something very painful, and you need to keep yourself and to going through this uh, time period, be active, be supportive, and continue your activity. It's very, period of big tension, and for you as individuality and for society, and on the scale of this like global problem, you could see that there is some problems from neoliberal sphere could arise, and like you should be focused on helping to the people you are responsible for. You should act in on these problems. You like bit sliced in this situation, but so it's kind of difficult context. But yeah, okay, to add some, there is still support. It's a bit less for Ukrainians as we feel, because people tired of this stacked period of positioned war, let's say, that now is happening, but still support is continuing. And through this year, it was proved that like people could unity and make a difference in the situation and help by this solidarity. Yeah, but at all, like I will say that it's a bit hard period still continuing.
Katya, do you have something to add? I mean,
yeah, like a lot of things changed, obviously. And in the beginning, it was, I could say it was more maybe support and solidarity. Maybe we had also this a lot of people, a lot of acquaintance, a lot of initiatives and organizations from other countries who were ready to help with urgent and necessary things. Now, I would say that there is a decline of this support, at least what I experienced from one hand. From other hand, I already see that for this almost 2 years, we crystallized some long-term relations with some initiatives from Ukraine and from outside of Ukraine. In our case, we focused a lot on the fundraisings, on the charity events, because what we can do, we have a lot of friends and colleagues and relatives who are joined the army or who are almost all the time volunteering. Sometimes it's difficult for us to come back to, and it was difficult actually, to come back to the cultural activities or, for example, I don't know, open exhibition in our space. That what we know how to do and how to organize. But for example, it took me 1.5 years finally to allow myself to do it and to start slowly to come back to culture, I think, which is still should be linked with volunteering and with fundraising. I don't see other ways to organize something in Ukraine if not fundraise or to support some other initiatives or representative, also like people from the culture field, and not just from the culture field. What also changed in our in our activities, of course, we started to collaborate with some other cultural organizations. In this way, we don't have a lot of problems with that. We actually have requests from other organizations quite often about organizing some residencies or to maybe to propose some ideas of collaboration and some project. So that's how it changed. I mean, like all of us definitely exhausted. I will repeat it again. I think that everyone feel it, but from other hand, like really, we don't have other choice. We need to keep going. We need to fight. We need to defend, and first of all, we need to support those who are on the front line, those who are on the trenches, those who are volunteering like non-stop. And that's the only thing what we can do. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sashko?
Yeah, I would say like if we talk about some changes since the first days after the invasion, I would say that talking about our work as a collective, I would say is that we have changed dramatically the focus of our work. Like we just started as a volunteer organization which mostly worked with IDPs, with civilians. And now I would say that 3/4 or maybe more of our work is just dedicated to helping the army and paramedics who just work with the army. And I would say that there is some weird kind of artificial boundary, like people in Europe, maybe in other countries, they just tend to divide like civilians and the militaries in the wrong way. Because most Ukrainians who have joined the army, they didn't want to be in the army. Like they are, I don't know, designers, mechanics, music teachers, English teachers, German teachers, just to name a few professions from the list of soldiers and paramedics who we regularly help. And of course, I mean, it's more important just not to help, for example, their kids with just some toys or clothes or like even like what is just matters, what their families want more is just like to get their fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters back home alive. The sooner the better. So like that's why we rejected this idea of some type of division between Ukrainian civilians and Ukrainian soldiers in our volunteer focus as some type of hypocrisy. And so that's why like now we mostly focus on helping the Ukrainian army and paramedics. Like this is like basically it's like not about us becoming militarized, but it's about being true to the principles that that basically life matters, that like what is that human life is paramount. Yeah, like another significant change is that now we are receiving less support, less attention from the media, from the societies in the other countries. And of course, it's like kind of heartbreaking to understand that your losses, that your pain has to be some type of competitive in order to gain attention, in order to attract more resources. Like it's really heartbreaking, but I guess like we have to take it for granted as like I see that basically we have to be honest that Ukraine has received like relatively more support than many other countries that just could deserve international support as well. I just mean, for example, what happened in Armenia for the past years, because I guess that the war in Artsakh like has been basically absent, like in the media, for example, in comparison with attention that we have received as a country. Like, but at the same time, like anyway, it just means that this is like another change that we can't stop noticing. Yes, and it just means that, like, yes, it just means kind of lots of things, and probably this is like one of the reasons that we would like to talk to our partners and colleagues in other countries in Europe and Germany.
Thank you. Thank you very much for participants, for Oksana, Katya, Kseniia, Sashko. And now I just wanted to, in the end, open the mic. If you have any questions, we probably have the time for 1 or 2 questions.
Hello, my name is Vladik. I'm from Mariupol originally and now from Monday Kitchen project. It's a community based in Berlin and focused on making a safe space for Ukrainians and make it socialize somehow in Germany in this different life nowadays. And actually it's more closer not to the question, more to motivation, because for me it was important to make a screenings and invite some guests from Ukraine, some activists, and translate here context of Ukraine. And what I wanted to say, that is really important when people from Ukraine come here with experience and translate it here. Because people here live in another bubble, which is also separating from Ukraine. And when you remember in how it was there and how it happens now, I think it's really important to just say it here in Europe, not in Germany only. So yeah, it was what I wanted to say to all activists who doing this work in Ukraine still, and I know it's super hard, so big respects and thanks for Mike. Yeah.
Vladik, we cannot see you, but it was nice to hear you.
Yeah, Vladik, thank you. We will join you someday. Probably even next year, someday next year.
Hi, my name is Katya. I'm originally from Ukraine, but I've been living a long time in Germany. I have a more theoretical question, because there is like this theory that the decentralization reform that happened in Ukraine before has a lot to do with the capability of people and just being political and organizing themselves. What do you think about that?
Well, I can say from the perspective of research which we came across in different publications, we approached decentralization rather from the perspective of socioeconomic equality or inequality in this sense. And I would say that it had many bad side effects. And also just today I read a report by Amnesty International about the elderly people in Ukraine during the war. And they were also saying that in the end, it led to the fact that local communities, especially those who are close to the front line for obvious reasons, they're struggling because of the decentralization. A lot of huge parts of their budgets are not supported from the central government. And the situation when the economy is basically crashed, especially in these territories where the active fighting is happening, they cannot do anything, basically, what they are supposed to do. And in the end, the social services, so-called, which they have to deliver to elderly people, they cannot deliver them because they are lacking their own budgets, and the idea of decentralization was to put these services on the local authorities, most of them. I sometimes feel that in Ukrainian case, the priority of the state can be very easily seen from where this sphere is financed. If it's priority for the state, it's financed from the central budget. If it's not priority for the state, it's financed from the local budgets, with all the consequences of inequalities in the end, unfortunately. Though I know that there is some positive potential of the idea of decentralization, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that much in Ukraine. Though I also heard about this perspective that it kind of empowered local governments and civil societies in a way to react more flexibly to the challenges created by the war. But I'm not sure there is a kind of general evaluation of this hypothesis. So it exists. It definitely, there are examples when local authorities, being more proactive, were able to implement some really progressive things because of they had this leverages created by decentralization. But these are kind of these success stories, which it's really hard to say what is the structural situation behind them, and especially to say now when there is no reliable statistics or lacking reliable statistics. It's kind of mess around in this sense. So it's really hard to say. It's controversial, at least I would say, the effects of the decentralization.
So I think we need to finish already. And well, thank you so much for being with us. And the next performance, Rybachka, I really recommend to stay here for this event also. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.